Welcome to the Udrcast, live from the recovery capital of Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Here with another special guest. All my guests are special. They're special in their own way, and this beautiful lady I met at a meeting, probably about a year and a half ago, maybe. And I could just see it in her eyes that she wanted this so bad, and you could hear it in her voice. It was like every fiber of her wanted a new life. And so we have Larissa here. What's your last name or last initial?
Logozzo.
Logozzo,
Yeah,
that's
Larissa
right. That's
Logozzo.
right. Daniel's sister.
Daniel?
Logozzo. Yeah, I didn't know you guys were brother and sister. I just thought he called you his sister, like in recovery.
No, I'm his actual little sister. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how was your day so far?
My day is good. I finally have, what they call weekends. So that feels nice to be like, oh, it's Saturday. Awesome. Day off.
Back in the old days, didn't matter what day it was.
It didn't matter. I didn't even know what day it was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good to have you here. I've been looking forward to this. Thanks for coming here and doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So I think Larissa, sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I think where we're going to go is because I've heard pieces of your story and kind of intrigued me. That's why I asked you to be on it. Like, it's not like we talk all the time or see each other all the time. But when we do see each other, I really enjoy, like, your presence in the rooms and whatever because, like, you're a light. You're a shining light. And that precious gift of humility, you radiate it. So, but because I've heard pieces of your story, I was always like, fuck, I want to hear more. And I'm sure people would love to hear more. And so for today, let's kind of walk back into the beginning parts of your life, which I've learned a little bit about today when we were in the green room.
Okay.
And just kind of walk us through, like, your life with your brothers. And before we get into that, you have 4 brothers.
Yes.
Or 3 brothers.
I had 3, yes. I'm like, wait, how many brothers do I have? I have 3 brothers. One of them has passed away.
From fentanyl.
From fentanyl overdose, yeah.
And your other 2 brothers were with you on the streets, or not even always on the streets, but you guys were a team in addictions.
Always. We were always, a few steps away from each other. Always doing separate things, but always, we went through our whole entire addiction together. Except for the last part.
Codependently?
Absolutely. 100%. But, in saying that, we helped each other to survive long enough until we were ready to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if I would have survived without them.
Yeah.
Through a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, and based on our conversation earlier, you being a woman in that high-risk lifestyle, they really did protect you, right? And they were around you and kind of kept you safe in many respects.
Yeah.
So let's go back. How did you grow up?
I grew up in Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Oh, my God. There we started off right away.
I actually just came back from vacation from being there. But I grew up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I actually had a really great life growing up. There was 6 of us, so 4 kids and my mom and dad. We grew up in this, huge custom-built house overlooking the city. And we had I would consider a really good family dynamic. Every family has their issues. My dad was an alcoholic. He just didn't realize it at the time. So there was trauma from that. But all in all, I had a really great life growing up. We had every opportunity that a child could ask for. I went to high school. I had lots of friends in high school. I was involved in dancing, singing, gymnastics, like you name it, I did it, right? And we were always, all of us were really, really closely connected with each other, right? So with me and my brothers and my mom and So after high school, so I graduated high school, my parents got separated. My mom moved to San Diego in California. I lived there with her for a bit, decided that that wasn't my scene, so I moved back to Thunder Bay, graduated high school, moved out here to Calgary for a year. Then I went to University of Hawaii for marine biology.
No way.
Yeah.
Where were your brothers?
They were, so my oldest brother, Michael, he was an auto mechanic and he went to university in Denver. He was running his own auto shop. Daniel they all moved out here. So see, once one of us did, the rest of us followed, right? So I moved out here first and Daniel moved out here. Daniel was going to university in London, Ontario. Where he moved out there, I can't really remember. Anyways, but Daniel he's actually a registered massage therapist. And little Rodney, when he graduated high school, he just started his own business. He had like Crosstown Courier and owned a meat business and a butcher shop. And, you know what, everybody was on the road to quote unquote success. So I moved out here. I went to university in Hawaii. Then I did an exchange program to France for marine biology as well. And then when I ended that year in France, I was going to my mom got sick. There were some other issues there. That's a whole other story. Well, okay, we'll get into them. My mom had chronic pain her whole life. So from the time she was 13, the doctor told my baba, so I'm half Ukrainian, half Italian. My baba's my grandmother. Told my baba, oh, just give her 222s because she would get such severe migraines that they would put her out of commission. Do you know what 222s are?
No.
Acetaminophen and codeine. So all of us were essentially addicted to codeine when we were born, right? So they would just sell them over the counter in bottles of 100, right? And, because my mom would have this chronic head pain her whole entire life. But nobody was able to identify that as addiction at the time.
Right.
Right? So let's see. So when I ended my year in Hawaii, or in France, I moved back to Thunder Bay. My mom was not doing well. And she came to visit. I was looking after her. I decided not to go back to school right away because there was so much going on. I moved back to Calgary. My mom moved back from San Diego to Calgary with me. And her and I lived together for a year and she died. Daniel was out here. Rodney was out here. My brother Michael had moved out here. So all of us were here again when she passed away. And when she passed away, you know, my oldest brother Michael had always been dabbling into some crack and coke and that whole scene, but none of us ever really got into it. It started really, really, really going downhill after my mom died. Yeah.
And Michael had no fear with testing out drugs, and did he ever try to get you guys to test them with him or anything like that?
You know, Michael had this different outlook with drugs than we did, right up until the end. You know, Michael had deteriorating discs in his back from being a mechanic and bending over all the time, and the doctor put him on 525 Oxy 80s a month.
Holy shit.
That's enough to kill a small country. So, you know, we would do them, and we didn't realize that they were addictive.
Yeah.
Right. And this is 20 years ago now, right? So we just started doing them, and then we started shooting them, and then.
So he was the catalyst to it?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was the catalyst, and his mentality was, if I can just take a pill and not be in pain every day, then what is the harm in that? Right? But I mean, that was at a point where he still had his business. He had a way to make money. He still had relationships in his life. relationships were changing, but he was okay with all of that, right?
And was that out here?
Yeah, it was out here. Yeah.
How old were you guys? Or you?
I was, so that all started when I was about 27. You know, maybe a little bit before that, but my mom died when I was 27 in 2007.
And you had come back to Canada for the funeral?
So,
From university?
so I came back from university when I was 25.
Okay.
And then my mom really wasn't doing well, and she would fly from San Diego to either Thunder Bay or Calgary, wherever we were, essentially. She really wasn't doing well. And so she decided, when she really wasn't doing well, she decided just to move to Calgary because I was living there.
Okay.
Right? And all of us kids were here in Calgary. And I knew that she wasn't doing well, so I took the time off school. I was going to go back to university and then decided not to. I should have gone.
And so your mom deteriorates and
Yeah.
then passes unexpectedly?
Unexpectedly. So we were, I could see the pain. Like, I know that look of chronic pain in someone's face. And I could tell that it was getting worse and worse and worse. And I mean, we flew all around the world to find naturopaths and doctors and different ways of healing, and nothing would help. Nothing. So when she moved in with me here in Calgary, I could just tell how bad her pain was getting. And my dad had come down here, and, you know, I was working out on the oil rigs at this time, and my dad had a job out on the oil rigs. My parents were separated, but they still had a relationship, right? They had gotten into a huge argument one night, and I thought that my mom was having a nervous breakdown. So I fell asleep beside her, trying to console her. And when I woke up in the morning, she had regressed into being a child.
No way.
She was crying for her mother. She couldn't dress herself, feed herself, bathe herself. She couldn't, like, connect to the world outside of her. Like, she was terrified of anything that was happening. So after 5 days, we took her to emergency, and the only thing the doctor says was, well, her vitals are fine. I told them what happened. They just said she'll snap out of this. So we took her home, and the next day she died.
No way.
Yeah. And the day that she died, I woke up, and she was really cold. And my dad said, Larissa, call the ambulance. So we lived right in this penthouse downtown Calgary, right across the street from the Elbow River Casino. And there's a fire station, and that paramedics were there in 3.5 minutes. And when I ran to the phone and I went to sit down beside her, she looks at me, and for the first time in 5 days, she's speaking normal. And she says, I'm so grateful to have such a beautiful daughter. And I said, yeah. Okay. But it's time for me to go home. And I said, no, you are home. And she laughed at me. She actually laughed at me. She's like, Larissa, it's time for me to go home. And she died. She died right there, sitting up. And the paramedics came, and I said, I just fucking talked to her. I just talked to her. And they tried to revive her, and they couldn't.
What a trip.
Yeah. But she laughed at me because I knew what she was talking about, right? But I just wasn't ready for her to leave yet. Yeah.
Holy shit. And you guys were all really close and must have loved your mom like crazy, eh?
Yeah. You know, everything that is love and light and support and goodness, that's what my mother was. I could not have been more blessed with another mother. She was all of those things. And so when she died, that was one of my main safe, supportive, stable supports. And I pretended that I was okay because my whole life, I always had to be strong. I always had to keep it together. I didn't drink or smoke or fuck around when I was young, or my addiction really didn't start till I was older, right? So I felt like I had to keep up that persona. So when my family would ask me, how are you? I'd be like, good. And really, I'd be dying inside. So the farthest thing from good, so shoving a needle of cocaine in my arm really didn't seem like a bad idea.
When someone would ask you how are you, and you would say good, when your mom was alive and she was raising you guys, did she teach you that, or did she teach you to be vulnerable and like talk about what was bothering you, or where did you come up with that answer?
That is a really good question. Thank you for asking me that. So from my experience, and I don't know if my brothers have a different experience, but with my mother would always know that something was wrong, right? So she would constantly poke the bear. Like she would be like, no, like, let's talk about it. You're telling me, right? So I knew that it was important to talk about things, but then on the other side of that, I saw her getting physically abused, her going through mental, emotional abuse, right? Me as well, and never say a word about it. And then on the other hand, put on a perfect smiling face to the world where everybody thought there wasn't a problem or an issue in our family, right? And so to watch my mother, who I love and respect and adore, be treated in a certain way.
By your father?
By my father. And it would have been easy if my dad was just an asshole all the time, right? But he was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which made it really difficult because I have this love for my father who supports us, financially supports us, allows us to dream big and supports the things that we want to do. But then on the other hand, turns around and calls us useless and stupid. And especially when he was drinking, which happened to be all the time. So there was always that, do I love you or do I hate you? How do I love somebody and stick with them when they still treat me this way, when they're my father? And so I watched my mom, I watched my parents' relationship my whole life, and I thought that that's what love was. I thought love was sacrificing your own happiness for the potential that somebody else could do better.
So you kind of got mixed messages from your mother, and she was the only one, by the sounds of it, correct me if I'm wrong, that was able to poke the bear and get the bear to reveal in a vulnerable way what was the matter.
Yeah.
And once she was gone, you reverted to her other behavior of kind of shutting down and everything's fine.
Yeah.
And
because if everything was fine, I'm a stronger woman if I can just deal with all of this. I'm strong. I can handle this. I can handle all of this. Because I'm strong and that gives me worth. Right?
And we see this in our society all the time, right? The societal belief system that you have to handle everything yourself, and vulnerability is not the main go-to in the society. It's like trying to carry the weight of the world on your own shoulders and not ask for help, right? And, typically women do have a little more outlets for those kind of things, but at this point in your life, that wasn't the case. And so your mom passes. Your brothers are close by too, but she passed right in front of you. Were your brothers there?
No, I had to call them and let them know. And then they I guess they put they found some type of like electrical current in her heart, but I knew she had gone. So they put her on life support and took her to the hospital, to the Peter Lougheed, where I would spend a good portion of my life throughout addiction. And, or no, was that? No, it wasn't at the Peter Lougheed. It was at the Foothills. Yeah, they brought her to the Foothills, put her on life support, and then everybody came to say goodbye. Yeah.
And so everyone said goodbye. Heartfelt, family. Your father was there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my dad and all my brothers and my brother's girlfriends.
And then what?
And then after she passed away, we were working on the oil rigs and we're all making good money and
Hold on. What did you do on the oil rigs?
I can do anything my brothers can do.
Were you roughnecking?
No. I wanted to though, but they wouldn't let me. I was just a crew truck driver, so I would drive everyone to. So it was hard.
Yeah.
It was good though. It was good money, and I operated heavy equipment for a long time. Yeah, I was a 57
Just being in
scraper
that
operator.
environment says a lot. Holy shit.
You should have Daniel here one day and listen to the shit that he's been through with all of that. It's wild.
10-4.
It's wild. Yeah, so, we were all still working, doing dope secretively. And then...
Mostly the oxy still?
Oh, yeah. Oxys, especially the oxys, because they were, accessible and we liked them. And the reason why I brought up the thing with my mom about her, about all of us being born addicted to 222s is because, when I was on the street, it wouldn't matter if there was siblings. Oh, yeah, that's my sister. Yeah, that's my brother. Everybody would always have different DOCs, whether it's alcohol or meth or coke or crack. And I found it really weird that all of us had the same DOC. We had access to any drugs that we wanted, but all of us had the same DOC. So I don't know if there's something there or not, but all of us had the same DOC. But we would do everything else as well, right? Like there's
Right,
that.
right,
If I, but hey, I'll take whatever I can get, really.
Yeah.
So we were just hiding it. We were just hiding it from everybody,
But not each other.
we were hiding doing needles from each other. So Michael and I knew that we were injecting. Daniel and Rodney didn't start injecting till after. Where one of us goes, the rest of us follows. Every time.
It's kind of like a drug addict rule. When you start injecting, you're at that next level, right? And then the guilt and the shame that come along with that, right?
I used to work for a naturopathic doctor in the States, and he did this treatment. It's called neurotherapy, which was a series of injections of procaine. Anyways, I was really used to needles. So it didn't seem like a bad idea to me. And it also didn't seem like a bad idea because I had no fucking clue where it was going to bring me.
Right.
I had zero awareness to addiction and the potential of where it could lead me. My dad was an alcoholic, but we didn't know. That was just life back then, right? I hadn't watched anybody's life fall apart from addiction ever until my life started falling apart from it.
Yeah, you didn't have any uncles or relatives or
None.
cousins or,
Nope.
You weren't even watching shows by the sounds of it that were like that, right?
No.
So you didn't have a benchmark and you were just kind of tracking a brand new trail at the guidance of, maybe your brother kind of showing you the ropes a little bit. But yeah, you're just going that way.
Yeah. So I really didn't think that anything was that bad of an idea. I found out, though. I sure found out, yeah. But I wish I would have had some type of an awareness towards that, but I didn't. You know, my dad was old school, so he tried everything with us. He would be like, okay, just work, make money, and then you'll have money to buy what you need, but only do it on the weekends. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. I'll try that. But right on, Dad. Let's try that. Okay, that's not working. Let's try something else. Okay. We would just go through all of these ridiculous like formats of trying things to make them work, and none of them did.
No.
Right? None, of course, none of them. But we didn't know that. Like, we had nobody to even talk to say what is happening, right? You know,
And ultimately, really, it's the oxys that were prescribed to your brother that got all you guys on this path. And your brother's injury, where he lost the judgment that drugs were bad and built the judgment that if I can remove the pain from my life with a pill, why the hell not?
yeah.
That was his judgment.
Yeah.
And as he got these drugs and started sharing them with that attitude, that's kind of the catalyst, right? And so now you guys lost your mom. Your dad's trying to help you manage your opioid use through work.
Because he had no idea either, right? Like, my dad grew up, he's an old school Italian man.
Yeah.
He grew up drinking with his father till 4, like, bottles of Drambuie every single night. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. I don't know how they did it, right? I don't know how they did that their whole life. But anyways, a lot of people can say the same thing about me. But that was his mentality, right? He still maintained a family, a home, ran his own business. And so he thought that that was sustainable with dope because he didn't understand the dope that we were doing, right? But my dad stopped drinking after my mom died.
No way.
Yeah, he just,
Like right after?
like, just, I don't know whether it was, yeah, I think so. One day I started getting really messed up, and then I just looked over and my dad was never drinking, ever.
So what about the kids? They fell off the rails.
It pains me to think that my dad had to watch all 4 of his children go down this path. And it's not that he took himself out of the environment. He actually watched us. He would come pick me up for coffee, and I'd be beat up and high and a complete mess. All 4 of his children, he watched this happen to. And he didn't know how to help them. Yeah.
So you spent 20 years in active addiction?
About that, yeah.
And you went from a normal young woman with all the opportunities to like a fraction of a human being.
If that. Yeah.
And your brothers as well. And you lost your older brother to it. And you and your other 2 brothers just went right down the tubes.
Yeah.
For all the same amount of time, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes.
To the streets?
Yeah. So I was saying, you know, there's homeless and there's really homeless. So, you know, one of us always would kind of have a place or be staying at someone's place or staying in a trailer. So when it was 40 below zero, we could kind of mismatch places. But, you know, the last 5 years, things just got really, really bad to where we couldn't keep anything together. And all of our money was just, what money we were making was just all going to fentanyl. And, but the last year, I was completely homeless. I had lost contact with them. And it was a pretty rough year. It was a pretty rough year. So I didn't even know anybody after I couldn't contact my brothers. I had no idea where they went. So I was on the street all the time. You know, I'd go to the DI or the Alpha House when it was 40 below zero.
Who were you hanging with?
No one.
So you would go to these places for help at night or food?
Yeah.
Food. Did you get to know some of the helping staff?
No.
No, you just kept to yourself, didn't look people in the eye kind of thing?
No. I was really good.
Where would you sleep?
on one of the mats.
Okay, so
I
you
sleep
would
on the mat there.
ever outside?
Yeah, I slept out there too. Yeah, I slept on that street a few times, and I was always I was always really good. I always had my own way of making money, right? And people would try and get me to click up with them or roll with them and I think I was so happy to get away from my ex, and I knew I could just make money on my own, and I didn't need a lot, right? I just needed to not be sick. That was it. I could steal everything else. I just needed money for my dope.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had, just a couple little things that I did. So I didn't want to involve myself with anybody else because I seen the drama of what that looked like, right? And I had just cut the cord from being with my ex for 13 years. So I was like, I am good.
And one thing I'd like to point out, as we were talking earlier, you had said you were so blessed that you weren't sexually assaulted like every single other woman that you saw on the streets. Can you describe that a little bit for women and men to hear what it's actually like for most women and like how lucky you actually are and how absurd it is that how blessed you are that didn't happen, and that kind of makes a statement of the society that we're in to some degree.
Sure, I'll speak to that. Yeah, so I know that it seems like I've been through a lot, but it could have been so much worse. So much worse. And yes, I'm so blessed that I've never been sexually assaulted in my life. And I'm so blessed that me living that life for so many years and being homeless by myself all the time, that never happened to me. But like I was telling you about, like, I'm not a small person, right? So it's not that people haven't tried, but they just couldn't go through with it.
You would scream and fight with everything you had.
I grew up with 3 brothers, right? And we used to play fight all the time. And if I couldn't grab something, my brothers always told me, Larissa, if a man ever attacks you, don't kick him in the nuts, kick their kneecaps out. So I was really, really blessed that that never happened to me, because I don't know one other girl or woman or even teenager that was out there that wasn't sexually assaulted multiple times. Multiple.
And that's going on right now
to
out
the
there.
point where it's normal. Oh yeah, this guy, what a fucking asshole, he raped me. What? Yeah. And they would just, blow my mind. Well, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking unbelievable.
And like, I was older. Some of these girls are 19, 20. I couldn't even imagine. I just couldn't. So, my journey could have been so much worse. So much worse. And they just normalize it, right? It's just normalized. Because how else are you going to deal with it? How else are they going to deal with it except to normalize it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad. And we know what's going on out there like now.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not... what really shocked me is that it's not just people in addiction.
Yeah. It's the predators.
I saw a lot of sober people. I remember one time thinking, we were in this house and, this person walks in and nicely dressed, really nice car, like lawyer. Anyways, a few things happened, but I remember looking at this person and saying, if I have to deal with this shit, if I'm sober, I don't know if I want to be sober. This person looks like they have it all. And what just happened is unspeakable in this house, and they just walked out the fucking door.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of predators out there that prey on drug addicts in general,
Yeah.
whether they're male or female. Yeah. And they'll take, sexual advantage of them at any cost.
Yeah.
And that susceptible group of people who are slaves to their drug can't fight back. They're so messed up, and they've normalized it, and they don't care, or they'll willingly go along and sell their soul.
When I was telling you before how I've had to fight some people off,
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really cold out one night, and this man, and it was really late, and there was no C-train stations open, and pulled over and was seemingly like he was genuinely concerned, right? You can't be walking out here in the cold, you're gonna freeze. I'll bring you to my house, you can shower, I don't want anything from you. And I was getting frostbite, like on my face and on my fingers. I was that cold. What are my choices? Right? Like, I was like, okay. So I went. Didn't want drugs, but wanted sex. Right? And I told him on the way there, I said, listen, I am not a working girl. And if that's what you're looking for, please drop me off. No, I'm just being nice. I'm just bringing you to my house. I'll feed you. You can take a shower. I'll drop you off wherever you want to go when you're done. No, that's not what happened, right?
Is that the one you had to destroy the apartment to get out of it?
God, he had I don't know if he played sports or what, but there was a couple bats that were all in the corner with a bunch of other hockey things, and I just destroyed his apartment. Because first of all, I was completely honest with you. Like, if that's what you want, please drop me off. Right? I'm not playing with you and pretending I'm going to give you something that you want and then not give it to you. No, I'm not a working girl. Even if that doesn't even matter, but it's just like the lies and the deceit and the fact that, fuck you, it is this cold outside. You're actually playing with people's lives. It's this cold and you're saying that I can be somewhere warm and you're trying to assault me? And he would have if I couldn't pick up that bat and find a weapon, right?
Fuck, you're pretty lucky. You're pretty lucky. You escaped.
I'm more than lucky. I'm blessed. I'm blessed that has never happened to me.
And having your brothers within arm's reach, usually most of the time, prevented the number of other chances this could have happened, like we talked about. We'll get back to the podcast in a second. The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely of the guest sharing or myself. We have no affiliation with any 12-step or recovery program. And if you do like our work, please consider visiting BILLWARD.life and supporting what we do. Now back to the podcast. Okay, let's kind of fast forward to what happened. Like, how did you find your first inkling of a way out? And how did that look?
Okay, well, I had been in a 13-year toxic abusive relationship. And when I finally walked away from that relationship, I was homeless. Like I was saying, I lost contact with my brothers because I walked out with nothing. I had no shoes, no cell phone, no money, no dope, nothing. I had a shirt, pants on. But that was the only way I could leave, right? But at that point, anywhere was better than there. And I'd finally had it. And I was homeless for the whole year after that. Very, very, very alone with no one. So, you know, sometimes it's even better to have a shitty boyfriend. But no, I was just by myself. So after a year of that, I had woken up one day down by the river. I was robbed, beat up, which wasn't an abnormal thing, you know. Not super beat up, just robbed and kicked, and I think I had a black eye. But I had a raging infection going. So I had at one point given myself a blood infection that damaged my heart valve and my knee joint. And anyways, I had an infection running up my leg. And I was dope sick. And I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I just had it. And I had a fever. And it's not that I hadn't been in this place before, because I had, right? But I crawled to the DI, because I was down by the river, right by the DI there. I crawled to the DI, and they put me in an ambulance and sent me to emergency. And I was just done. I knew it. But I wasn't done to the point where I was angry or scared. I was at the point where I thought that I had tried everything. Because, you know, for 15 years, I mean, I had been in and out of jail. I had tried to quit cold turkey. I tried weaning myself off. I tried methadone. I tried Suboxone. You name it, I tried it, but it didn't stick. And so I thought that there was no hope. And there was no way that I was going back to that. I'm like, there's no way. And I didn't want to kill myself, but anywhere was better than that at that point, right? So that was another point in my life where I was like, anywhere is better than here. So I'm either going to die, and I'm okay with that. I got to a point where I couldn't even dream or fantasize about my future anymore. You know, I had no thoughts or, you know, presumptions that I would reconnect with my family or my friends. You know, I couldn't even see that in my future anymore. So I was completely out of hope. And I knew with every fiber of my soul that if I went back out there, I was going to die. And I was okay with that. I wasn't scared. It didn't scare me. I wasn't like, well, I better get better or I'm going to die. No, I'm okay with death. That's fine, because it's better than here.
10-4.
Right? So I was okay with that. And when I went to the hospital, I said to the doctor, I said, listen, I need some real fucking help. Because you will never see me again. I've never said that before. They knew me at the hospital. I've never said that before, and I really meant it. If I go back out, I'm not coming back. This is it. He said, okay, we're discharging you tomorrow. And I said, well, shit. Death it is, right? And yeah, I was just okay with it, because I thought that there was no other way. And then by the grace of God, someone found me, and my brother and my cousin found me at the hospital. I don't know how. None of us had any contact with each other. They found me at the hospital, and my brother was at Simon House at the time. And my brother had posted a picture on Facebook of me in the hospital. Oh boy. It was such a good picture that people thought I was dead. Like they thought I had passed away. When he put that picture out on Facebook, somebody that I know who works in recovery came to the hospital the next day, the day that I was getting discharged. And she thought that she was just going to come and bring me some clothes. And I had no idea that she worked in recovery. And I looked at her and I said, I need some fucking help. Like, I need some real help. I need some real help. She goes, okay. So she worked for the organization that I now work for. And if she would have came the day after, I would have been dead. And that was a Sunday that she showed up. Showed up on a Sunday. Like, every step of the way was like divine intervention for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's how it works.
And I have never been so happy and so relieved to know that there was still a way, that there was still a hope, that there could be paths that I could try, that I wasn't out of options, right?
So she offered you treatment?
So, yeah, she helped get me into Well, I knew how to get myself into Renfrew because I'd been there so much, but she got me into Renfrew. Then she said, okay, well, let's get you. She was a recovery coach at the time. So she knew how to connect me with all the different resources, which I had no idea about, right? I went to Aventa. I had no idea that there was a thing called sober living, you know? I had no idea that there was treatment programs and day programs and the 12 steps and all of these different modalities that give you, potential solutions to your problems, to your issues, right? To help work through them. I had no idea. And so she helped to connect me. She got me into detox. Then she helped get me into Aventa. And Aventa is a trauma-based treatment center. I loved it. I think I just loved every step of the way because anywhere was better than where I was.
Yeah.
Anywhere. And I was so done with it that I was just, and it was scary and it was intimidating. And, I hadn't had a real conversation with anybody in 15 years. So it put me in a place with 44 other women who are also coming off of drugs and alcohol. It's an interesting dynamic. But I was so happy to be there because I just really didn't want to go back to any aspect of that life again.
So every step of the way, detox included, treatment, it was enjoyable-ish. Although there was work, you accepted the work and whatever it was you had to do with open arms.
Yeah.
And when you did this trauma work, knowing that you hadn't suffered a significant amount of the way that our world views trauma, although your dad being the way he was traumatic, and how he was to your mom is traumatic, and that stuff has huge impact in how we are. Did they do a good job?
At Aventa?
Yeah.
Yeah. They do a phenomenal job, but I think there's a big misconception with people think that you're fixed when you come out of treatment. Right? So whether you go to a 12-step based program or where they base it from trauma, like deal with the trauma, then deal with the addiction, there's still a lot more work to be done afterwards. So, I was at Aventa for 4.5 months. So I did the phase 2 and then I did the phase 3. And it just, that's such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? For a lifetime of trauma. And you really can't dig into the really, really, really traumatic things because there's things that you can't talk about with a room full of other women who've also been through it. Like, that has to be done one-on-one, right?
And a lot of it, a lot of the deep vulnerability needed isn't even going to come for quite a while.
Yeah.
Right?
But they do get you comfortable in being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right? And that's really, really important. So to get comfortable with that uncomfortability, uncomfortability. I think I said that right. And to be able to just start to feel again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They really, really work on that. And they work on boundaries and relationships and past relationships. So even though they don't go really, really in depth with each person, it just kind of starts to warm you up. Well, it did for me,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people choose not to do anything with that afterwards. But then I looked at this and I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to need some trauma therapy after this, which I did, right? And worked through a lot of things, because those deep-seated, those deep-rooted issues from when you're children really, really affect you as an adult, right? On how you look and view and deal with relationships. And, I had a huge distortion of what I thought love was.
Yeah.
So,
And I've been around the rooms or recovery in Calgary for approximately 10 years. And, one of the things I've seen specific to women's treatment centers, and they come to the meetings, they've been coming to meetings for years. I've gotten to know many of the ladies from the two main centers. And what I've collected for data is, one, the first thing that you had said, once they do the treatment program, which is trauma-based, they think they're kind of done, which is so far from the truth.
Yep.
Then the other thing that I've noticed is you can go in and start stirring up trauma and maybe think that you've dealt with it, but it doesn't get dealt with. It gets stirred up and it will rise to the surface. And because the human psyche is so complex and our egoic minds and the way we structure programming is pretty black and white and in this lane and that lane. Trauma isn't like that. Neither is the psyche. So things come up over time. And what I've learned is the women who strictly rely on the trauma-based treatment or just going to trauma-based therapy even, it doesn't have the long-term positive effects as somebody who leaves that treatment and goes and does the steps. And I've seen women be hugely successful finishing trauma-based treatment and going to do the steps, and boom, they're sailing now. And then they realize it's a lifetime of work, right? A lot of times that mindset that the trauma work is all I need to do right now and maybe a little bit more down the road. But these people usually use drugs again, man. Like, I ain't fucking kidding you, right? And I'm not afraid to share that in a meeting full of fucking event or alcove women. I'll say this shit, right? And I do a little speaking at alcove, and I have said that, right? But I'm not sure that the counselors who bring the girls to the meeting really want me to say that kind of thing. But in the same breath, they say the same shit about men's treatment centers in their own way. Like, I don't know how many times I used to go to my home group and say, welcome to all you guys from treatment. I'm really glad you're here. Enjoy your free fucking sobriety. And then you could hear a pin drop, right? I'm like, that's what you got. You got free sobriety because you're in a structure. The minute you step out of treatment is where recovery begins. And if you think that you're good now, you're mistaken. These kind of things. But my take is, in the chapter Working with Others in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a line in there that says, you are to disturb them on the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. They stand a better chance in accepting what we have to offer. So to me, I'm disturbing them on the question of alcoholism because the main problem centers in our mind, and it's in our psyche, and it's in our fears, it's in our blood memory, body memory, and it's all this stuff that we need to work through, the defect of character and the trauma and all that kind of shit, right? So I'm really good at disturbing the people on the question of alcoholism or drug addiction, the root causes, and make people think. And the number of times I've had someone say, dude, your voice is in my head, and I'm here because I heard your voice or whatever, right? So I know that, like, my job is getting done because I get all the feedback from people. And there was this one guy on Facebook recently, he said, my conscience takes the voice of you. I just laughed. Eh?
I get that.
Right?
I totally get that. You're one of the people that I heard speak at Garnet Block who made me want to do my steps. You and Barb, you know? And I looked at you guys and I said, I want that. So I'm going to go get it.
It's beautiful to hear.
You know? And you really inspired me to take that next step. And I knew that I needed it. When I left treatment, I knew I needed more. So I left treatment. I did another day program. I had no idea what a boundary was. If you would have asked me 2 years ago what a boundary was, I would have been like, I don't know what separates Canada and the U.S. I had no idea that no was a full sentence. You know, up until 2 years ago, I learned that. There's so many things. Like, I'm 44. I feel like a kid sometimes. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that checks out. But yeah, you know, you really inspired me to do my steps because of hearing what you had to say. And, you know, there's something to also be said when you speak of the spiritual connection that you have within yourself. Really inspired me as well. I knew that throughout my addiction, I knew I was killing myself spiritually. I consciously knew that. I knew that. So I knew coming into recovery that I wanted, I didn't have to, but I did everything. I still do everything that I could possibly do to reconnect myself and make sure that I'm staying connected to myself and spiritually connected. And so I did a day program, and then I got a sponsor and I did my steps. And that was a huge part of my recovery. There's a lot that the steps gave me, and, you know, a lot that I learned about myself that I didn't learn in treatment, right? They really, really were two aspects that went really well hand in hand together in my recovery, right? Really, really.
And you're still new.
And I'm still new. I know, it's only been 2 years.
Right?
I'm still new, yeah.
Some of my biggest growth hadn't come until 2 and 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the bigger revelations, but I was in the literature a lot and I sponsored a lot, and that was really huge to my own spiritual connection and my own removal of the things that fucked up my life.
Yeah.
My defects of character, right?
Yeah, I really, you know, I pay a lot of attention to my old behavioral patterns, and you know, it can be challenging to recalibrate and take a look at the relationships in my life, especially the relationships with my family, right? I know I always want them in my life, but I know that we'll always have a connection and bond, but the way we were navigating that in the past didn't serve us. So I want to have that relationship with my family. Okay, my brothers especially, and I do, but I'm navigating it in a different way. And those old behavioral patterns have come out, you know? Right at the beginning, I was trying to save my little brother. I was trying to tell him what to do because what I thought he was doing was stupid. Still debatable. However, that's how it was always in the past, right? That's not for me to judge him or to say. So just navigating all of these different relationships and trying to restructure them in a really healthy way is what I'm doing. And it takes a lot of awareness to do that.
It sure does.
Yeah.
You know, kind of getting to the latter end of the podcast here, but I wanted to bring something else up. All three of you remaining siblings are all in recovery. And you guys couldn't have planned it like this, right? It just kind of happened like this.
Yeah.
It's a feel-good story right now at this point, right? Where you came in, Daniel went in, Rodney's now on his path. And how did that all kind of come together?
So, well, like I said, when I was really homeless, there's homeless and really homeless, right? So when I was really, really homeless for that last year, I lost contact with them. And I was looking for them everywhere I possibly could. Daniel ended up getting arrested. And he ended up in drug court, and then he was at Simon House. Little Rodney ended up getting arrested, and he ended up going to Simon House, but then relapsing, and then getting arrested again, and then going to drug court. And in between all of that, I knew that Daniel had gone to Simon House, but I didn't even know what Simon House was. I was like, what the fuck is Simon House? It's treatment. What's that? Right? Like, what is treatment? And we all ended up in recovery very separately within the same year. And we, at the time, had we weren't in contact with each other. We had no way to contact each other. So it was very, very, very separate.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, by the grace of God, we're all still in recovery, and really building solid recoveries underneath us, right?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. And it's amazing to be able to be a part of their journey in this way, right? Because this is new for all of us. You know, I mean, even the death of my oldest brother we were in such a state that didn't even jar us into thinking, well, maybe sobriety would be a good idea. How'd your brother die of fentanyl overdose? And you kept doing it? Yep. I said, went and found it as fast as I could after that happened. You know, like just the insanity of it.
What did your step 9 amends look like?
My step 9 amends, I made amends to my ex. That was a hard pill to swallow. That was one of the hardest pills to swallow. You know, at first I was like, he's the abusive one. I don't have anything to make amends for. No, that's not true, right? Absolutely not true. So that was a really big amends that I had to make. I made amends to my family.
Did the amends to your ex help resolve the resentment to some degree?
Yeah, I've always, you know, my dad used to say to me, if you're not going to do anything about it, don't sit there and bitch about it. So I essentially knew the whole time that it was my choice, that I was allowing him to do this to me. I took that accountability all of those years on myself, but I couldn't figure out why. Why did I let him do that? Why did I allow this? That's what I had to do a deep dive into. And when I figured out why I allowed this to happen, then I made an amends to him, and he had said, oh, he went into recovery as well at the same time. So he was in drug court. He's in recovery. God bless him. You know.
What's your favorite step?
That's a hard question. You know, I really enjoyed doing my step 4, because in me taking accountability and seeing my part in everything, it helped me to gain my power back, right? Because if I'm a victim in any of these circumstances, there is nothing that I can do in the future to change that, right? So in terms of that, in terms of learning about myself, that was one of my favorite steps.
Beautiful. Me too.
But I think it was, I really, you know, my favorite thing is having my spiritual awakening. That's my favorite thing. You know, that's where I sit. That's where my baseline is now.
Nice.
Every day. Yeah.
My favorite step is step 7.
Why is it step 7?
Because probably because I really have studied the literature.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, step 7 is ultimate surrender to Creator.
Mm-hmm.
And when you like peel back the literature of step 7 and you look at the step 3 prayer compared to the step 7 prayer, and you kind of know all the rest of the literature, it all brings you back down to this surrendering, you know, unreservedly to God without reservation. Amen. And it's like a full surrender, and there's just so much humility into it, like a desire to seek and do God's will. But the only way to get there is through the pain too of, you know, getting there, which can be painful through the change, right? And I think through the change, and I've done a lot, and I've went through a lot of pain in my recovery, it's bittersweet. And that surrender is just, it's so fucking worth it, man. Right? Creator is the way to go. And I don't mean like the idea of that. I mean like really trying to do that on a day-to-day basis and then teach other people. I'm a teacher, right? I try to teach people how I live, how the literature asks me to live. And it's not just that literature. I study many pieces of different literature, and you know, I read different books and stuff, and it all kind of, but I always take whatever I learn back to the big book, and there it is. It's an amazing piece of literature, man.
It is. There is, and I know we don't have much time, but
No,
it's tied to so many other. It's tied to so much. Like even when you look into like Hermetic principles or like the different laws of the universe, and like I've studied these things. I'm sitting here reading the steps. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, who was this guy? I'm gonna like there. It's just it's wild. Like it's wild, and I really started to understand. Like haven't fully, but just by like researching and starting to understand different spiritual, I don't want to call them spiritual laws, but everybody's saying the same thing in different words, in very different words.
I would say it is spiritual law.
Yeah. It's just in different words. And it amazes me because, you know, you have to be really in tuned to write these things and to realize how well they actually work. And it's said in so many different formats from so many ages throughout history.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, last but not least,
Okay.
anyone that's struggling, you work with a lot of females, right?
I do. I'm a recovery coach, yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's my camera, that's your camera, and
Okay.
I try to get the person that I've interviewed to, you know, send a message to whoever it is you want. Maybe it's the girl who doesn't think she's enough, or maybe it's the chronic relapser that doesn't think she's going to get it, or the person that, like you know, kind of resigned to, I'm dying. And like, what message of hope would you give them looking in the camera and talking to them like face to face?
I came to a point in my life where I was so disconnected from everything that was me that I thought there was no hope in actually finding myself again. And sometimes when you've gone through so much trauma and abuse, you think that living in that survival mode is your last step, is your only way to do it. You know, I didn't reach out when I really needed to because I didn't think that there was any chance that things could get better. And that kept my whole journey of addiction and trauma going for 20 years. That's a whole lifetime for some people. if I could have reached out sooner to anyone, that's the message of hope that I give. Just reach out to someone. Because there is hope. You know, I mean, I was eating out of dumpsters on the street with nothing. And if it weren't through having support from people around me after asking for it, I wouldn't be here today. So that's my message of hope. I think one of my biggest things was pretending I was okay when I wasn't. And feeling like I couldn't talk about it or couldn't say I'm not good.
And people really will love you till you can love yourself, hey?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm very, very grateful that you were here today and you were so vulnerable in sharing all these aspects of life. And I know we just touched the surface, really. But my hope is that my podcast will touch and your story will touch some people's lives. And, you know, everybody knows somebody who's struggling with substance abuse somewhere. So I want to thank you so much for coming here and joining us today, and keep on killing it out there and helping all the girls and people you do and shining that bright light of humility you radiate.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm honored that you had me on, and I hope that my message can reach somebody, that it can benefit, you know. Just letting people out there know that they're not alone.
Yeah, you do a good job. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.